Hey everyone, I'm Maddox. This year for Osama Bin Laden Death Day, I decided to make a rustic tomato pasta dish. It's a nice warm meal to have on a cold day while you think of the #1 terrorist burning in hell. It's a great dish to share with friends and family or to serve at dinner parties. Here's how. First, you need to gather your ingredients. I got a bunch of goofy colors of macaroni, 2 different types of spaghetti, regular and whole wheat, 2 tomatoes even though I only use 1, bunch of mushrooms, fresh mozzarella or burrata, some basil, 1 large red pepper, a bunch of green and black olives, and some type of ground meat, beef or pork preferred. I used pork. And don't forget the secret ingredient, just a pinch of hate. First, start out by filling a pot full of water. I used this one because it's the only one I had. Next, add a dash of salt to the water when you start to boil it. I guess it's supposed to make the noodles not stick together or something. I don't know, I saw it on a cooking show. Then, heat up some olive oil on a small skillet that's large enough to fry all the meat that you're about to put in there. And while that's going, chop up some garlic and some onions. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention that you're supposed to have an onion. Well anyway, get a white onion. Then put the chopped onions and garlic in a bowl somewhere. Then add some of the garlic that you just chopped into the frying pan with the olive oil. And toss in that meat with it. I specifically chose ground pork because it looks like brains. Just put it in the pan and try not to break it up with your spatula like an idiot. You'll screw up the whole dish. Next, season it with some salt and a little bit of pepper. Don't ask how much. If you don't know, go to school. Next, in another pot, add 2 cans of tomatoes, 1 diced and 1 stewed. Next, chop up some basil and add it to your sauce along with some oregano. That's like 90% of most Italian dishes right there. Now the next part is optional for people who like their food to taste good. Add a little bit of fennel. You can crush it between 2 spoons. I figured out this technique on my own because I'm a genius. And what a badass. Now while your sauce is cooking, don't forget to check in on your pork and make sure it still looks gross. Next, your water should be boiling by now, so go ahead and add your noodles. Now go ahead and add all the onions and garlic you chopped up to your sauce. Then give your pork another stir, and it's still gross. And while all that's cooking, take one of the tomatoes and slice it into thin slices. Then take your red pepper and slice off the end, and then slice off a thin layer like this. You want to get rid of all those shitty seeds in the middle because if you eat them, they come out the exact same way in your poop. Next, grab one of the green olives and cut off the tip. Just the tip. These will be your eyeballs. Cut off 2 of them. Then take one of the black olives and cut off just the other tip. They look like nipples, but they're not. Those are your pupils. Next, get the mozzarella cheese and cut off a couple of thin slices. You'll need these to be as circular and flat as possible. If the circle is too big, go ahead and carve out a smaller circle out of the big one. Then go ahead and stack them on top of the tomatoes and then put the olives on top of the cheese. Every time you see my hand go off camera, I'm putting food in my mouth. Now cut off another big slice for the mouth. Cut it in half, then carve out the inner portion that you won't be using. This will be his teeth. More food in my mouth. Osama Bin Laden lived in a cave, so his teeth were probably never this white. So if you want, feel free to add a little bit of olive oil or parsley to give it some stains. But I didn't do that because I thought of that after I recorded this video. By now your pasta should be done. Next, get a big serving platter and start placing the wheat noodles down like his beard. Now it doesn't matter if this looks sloppy because Osama Bin Laden didn't shave that well. His beard looked like shit, so it's okay to embellish a little bit. Then get the white noodles and use that for his turban. Then go ahead and add the eyes from earlier and the mouth, and then add those little bits of cheese for his teeth. Now grab a handful of the pork that should be done cooking by now. These will be his brains. Put it approximately where you think his brain splattered outside of his skull. I think his brain splattered right about here. And add a big slice of mushroom for his nose. Put it upside down so it looks like nostrils. What a genius. And finally, add the tomato sauce to the pasta. I like to keep mine chunky because I like to imagine that his brain splattered in huge gobs everywhere. Don't forget to add some on top of the turban too because it was probably a mess. If you want, you can adjust his eyes to look up in horror or down in sadness. I chose to make my face look shocking. Feel free to add more tomato sauce to his beard or his turban or wherever you think the bullet holes penetrated his skull. That's it for now. From my family to yours, happy Osama Bin Laden Death Day. While you think of the #1 terrorist